Hello and welcome to Any Given Sunday, Week 4. I'm Coop and this is my friend TJ. He's in hell. We were at Eagles-Rams this week in person, and man,
We
that had
were.
to be a brutal way to lose that game.
Yeah.
Was-
Unfortunately for me, that is not the first time I've seen my team lose like that one coming to the East Coast. I went to that Rams-Ravens game in 2023 where they lost to a punt return touchdown
in overtime.
in overtime via
Youch.
Tylan Wallace. Yeah, it's a really tough way to lose. Especially when you just feel like when you look at the game play by play, you feel like your team won more plays than the others, and just losing in a way like that really it sucks. But I'm still really happy with how a lot of parts of the team looked, and going into the link nonetheless, and almost coming away with the victory is enough for me against the reigning champs. I know that I've seen a lot of Rams fan pages yelling for Bo Limmer to get cut.
Bo Limmer, who I owe a Christmas card to, by the way.
Bo Limmer is if you don't know, Bo Limmer is the backup center for the Rams. That was unfortunately Steve Avila, the starting left guard, was out. I mean that Bo Limmer had a lot of had more field time than he would. He came in on a lot of rotational plays for either the backup left guard, Justin Dedich, or Dotson. And in pretty much every single play that he came onto the field, he either blew a blocking assignment or let up a blocked field goal, which ended up losing the game. But I'm sure he'll watch that film. He'll get better. I've got confidence in his ability to bounce back and have the Rams bounce back.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And the Rams' opponent this week is the Indianapolis Colts, and that's a great segue into our headline segment because Daniel Jones, man, what the fuck happened to you? I mean, in the best possible way. I had Daniel Jones in my division for 6 years, right? We played that guy twice a year for 6 years. Not once did he have a performance on par with anything that he's had in the last 3 weeks, including the year the Giants went to the playoffs, which was really Saquon Barkley and the Giants O-line and the Giants defense that year. But Indiana Jones, man, he is slinging that thing.
He is. I remember I was watching this. I was watching the film on Daniel and how Daniel Jones was playing this weekend, and the Colts ran a rollout to the left with a crosser going the other way. And Daniel Jones is about to get absolutely decked and delivers a dime 30 yards down the field to Josh Downs. And that I'm thinking about, is that the same Daniel Jones that fumbled on the 10-yard line with nobody in front of him? Is that the same Daniel Jones?
And the answer is both yes and no, right? Yes, it is physically the same person, but no, it's not the same player. Clearly, that half a season with Kevin O'Connell and the offseason with Shane Steichen, who is really in a lot of ways responsible for the development of Jalen Hurts as well, clearly that benefited Jones in a way that it just hasn't benefited Anthony Richardson. And Daniel Jones was always terrified of pressure. That's part of why the Eagles had so much success against him. If the front four got through or there was a free rusher, he just panicked. He shit his pants, and that was it. And we are now seeing in real time he will stand tall, he will take the hit, and he will make the throw that he needs to make. And that's a huge credit to him. That's a huge credit to his trainers. Whoever got him ready to do that deserves a lot of credit.
I think it's a huge credit to the organization. I think that the Colts were. I think that they had a lot more confidence in Jones from the start than I think a lot of people did, and I think that that's something that has kind of helped him play the way that he's playing now. He's playing much more composed than he used to, and I love to see it. I love to see the resurgence. Another quarterback resurgence this year seems to be a recent trend. But I love to see it. I'm here for it. And the Colts in general are looking like a true contender, especially in a weak AFC South.
Which is, and not the weak AFC South part so much, but it's really weird to think of the Colts as contenders because really since Andrew Luck retired, there's been nothing or almost nothing to write home about for that franchise. And, all we've heard in week ones over the years for the Colts is it's been X amount of years since they had the same week one starter going into 2 different years. I don't know if Daniel Jones is under contract for the Colts next year, but if he's not, they got to lock that shit down quick because
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I think that Daniel Jones could be the guy for the Colts for the next for the foreseeable future. And I hope he is. Because that is a really, really great story. Which is why we're talking about it today. But I think that this week upcoming game, and we're going to talk about this a little bit more later, is that they're playing my LA Rams this week in LA, and that's going to be a tough game for them. And even if they don't win, if they can just show their stuff against a top team in the NFC, I think that that's a really good sign for Colts, and Colts fans should be happy with it.
well, and the thing that gives the Rams the advantage in this game to me is the strength of the Colts, as much as Daniel Jones has improved, is still Jonathan Taylor in the run game, right? The fact that Daniel Jones is now a competent NFL quarterback 100% aids that. Because if you can throw the ball, it helps you run the ball. We saw that in person in Philadelphia on Sunday. But Jonathan Taylor is still the engine of this Colts offense.
Yeah.
And as great of a rusher as he is, I think we can agree that Saquon is at least more talented and running behind a better O-line.
Yeah.
And less than 50 yards. Less than 3 yards a carry. And I said last week that I really needed a big game out of him or A.J. Brown. We got a big game out of A.J. Brown. We got a performance that has me concerned about Saquon. And I don't know if the Colts are going to be able to throw as effectively if they're not going to be able to run as effectively.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point to bring up about the Rams Colts. But I watched every single one of those Saquon Barkley runs because I wanted to see what the Rams defense did differently this time. I want to see what they did differently, and simply they fit their gaps. The linebackers stayed patient. Huge credit to Kobe Turner, Poona Ford, and Tyler Davis, the Rams' interior defensive linemen. They were not moved. They did not let Juergens, Steen, and Dickerson get a lot of push on them. And that, combined with patient linebackers, it puts that running back in a box. And even Saquon struggles to get out of a box like that because that's just you can't.
Yeah.
When a defense is sound in their gaps and they put that running back in a box, there's not a whole lot anyone on that offense can do about it. And that's what I saw on film in that Sunday game. And if the Rams can do that again against Jonathan Taylor, I think that the Rams could force Daniel Jones to carry a load of the offense, which will be an absolute measuring stick for Daniel Jones to see what he's made of, and see if he can still keep that offense moving down the field, even without the help of the run game.
Yeah, and I mean, like you said, it'll just be a measuring stick game for Daniel Jones. We will see how far he's come. Is he a product of the talent around him? And if he is that talent enough for him to ride them to the playoffs, to a divisional round appearance, to a conference championship appearance? There's so much talent in the AFC, it's hard for me to imagine if Jones can't carry the offense on his own, the Colts making it to the Super Bowl. Just because Lamar Jackson can do that. Josh Allen can do that. Patrick Mahomes, through 3 weeks, has shown that he is at least capable of doing something on offense with really no help around him for the first time in his career. And it's going to be a tough situation for the Colts to get better if Daniel Jones can't carry the load of his offense.
Yeah, I can absolutely see that. The biggest thing with Daniel Jones though and the Colts situation is that yes, they have a great offensive line. Yes, they have a great running room. I don't think their receiving room is very strong.
No.
Especially when compared to teams like the Rams or the Eagles. It's really not that great. So I think that even if you're the Colts and if you can make the playoffs, you're happy about it. If you can win a playoff game, you're absolutely ecstatic.
Yeah.
And then if you can do that and then go draft a receiver to give Daniel Jones that primary target, that true receiver one, honestly, the Colts could look scary.
Yeah.
But how about then on the complete opposite of that spectrum of an offense looking scary was the Falcons' offense this Sunday against the Panthers. It was bad.
Yeah, well, and today, as we're recording this, it came out that they fired their receiver coach and pass game coordinator TJ Yates will take over the receiver coaching duties as well. I looked this up because I was curious while I was in class, actually. While I should have been paying attention to the lecture. Stay in school, kids. But Raheem Morris, former Rams defensive coordinator, defensive background as head coach, I was curious what the Super Bowl splits were all time between offensive and defensive head coaches. And I expected it to favor defensive coaches early and offensive coaches the closer we got to the modern day. What I found was that's not actually true. It's about balanced. There are more offensive background head coaches that have won Super Bowls. I have it on my phone because I'm bad at my job. But I believe the numbers for offensive head coaches were 23 coaches, accounting for 33 of the 59 Super Bowl wins, including most recently Nick Sirianni. The last time a defensive head coach won the Super Bowl was, unfortunately, Super Bowl 53 where Bill Belichick absolutely stumped Jared Goff and the Rams. And I say Jared Goff and not Sean McVay very intentionally there.
Well, that's a different thing. I mean, I think it was a little bit of both. Just because Bill Belichick gave out the blueprint to stop that early McVay era offense.
Yeah.
But then McVay adapted, which is why they were in a Super Bowl 3 years later, and why they're still contenders today. Which just speaks to how great of a coach McVay is. But back to the point of offense versus defensive head coaches.
Yeah. Looking at and I did have to include a special teams background. Shout out John Harbaugh. But if we're looking at guys with defensive backgrounds, there's more dynasties here, right? Like Tom Landry, Cowboys head coach, 2 Super Bowl wins early in Super Bowl history. He won Super Bowl 6 and Super Bowl 12. He's a defensive head coach. Chuck Noll, the old Steelers head coach, 4 Super Bowl wins in 8 years. No, 4 Super Bowl wins in 6 years. He won Super Bowl 9, 10, and then 13 and 14.
Staying to the Tomlin.
Mike Tomlin won Super Bowls 40 and 43 as a defensive head coach. And then the enormous outlier of all coaches, Bill Belichick, won 6 as a defensive head coach, and all in the 21st century. Even taking Belichick out of it, yes, there are fewer coaches that account for fewer wins, even with Belichick in there. 11 coaches account for 25 wins, but that's 2.25 wins per coach compared to 1.5 for the offensive head coaches. Even taking Belichick out, 10 coaches accounting for 19 wins. So almost 2 Super Bowls per defensive head coach.
What did you have Dick Vermeil as when you were going through this?
I looked Dick Vermeil up, and it said, where the hell is he? It said he was an offensive head coach because he was an offensive coordinator.
Yeah, he was.
But greatest show on turf, Rams. That makes sense. If we're looking at recent history, excluding Bill Belichick, which I understand is a huge ask, the last defensive coach to win a Super Bowl that wasn't Bill Belichick was Pete Carroll.
Yeah.
Who won it with Seattle, obviously, in that huge blowout win against Denver. And I fear, bringing this back to the Falcons, that the floor, while the floor might be lower for an offensive head coach, if a bad offensive head coach or a coach with a bad scheme gets hired, the floor might be lower, but the ceiling is so much higher. Because if you look at even just who the best coaches in the league are, how far down do you have to go before you get to a guy who was primarily a defensive coach? And we're not counting Dan Campbell here because he spent time on both sides of the ball as a coach.
No, Dan Campbell is what I would, along with Nick Sirianni to a level, is I would most definitely consider a culture coach.
Yes.
And those are guys that when they came in, they made a huge impact culturally by acquiring players that fit the idea of a person rather than the idea of a player. And mostly, I think John Harbaugh is a similar coach. But I think that your point about the floor and the ceiling being higher and lower for offensive minded head coaches is that simply because there are more of them, because there are simply more offensive minded head coaches, especially in today's NFL.
There absolutely are more offensive minded head coaches in the league today. But that came at a point. There was a tipping point around the time, around like 2011 when Cam Newton got drafted, where it went from being either fairly balanced or defensively favored to, fuck it, someone's got to do something. Yeah. And I think the recent analytics movement really ushered that in. And I think the guy that we have to credit for, not necessarily the Sean McVay hire specifically, but a lot of the hires like Sean McVay are Doug Peterson and Sean McVay, because McVay was an offensive whiz kid and turned the Rams around in a very short period of time, and Doug Peterson proved that you could win a Super Bowl playing the numbers and playing the odds.
Yeah.
And that 2017 team was a team of destiny. You could not put that you could put that roster in that season 100 times and they don't win the Super Bowl 99 of them. But it doesn't matter because they did in this timeline.
They did.
And there was a huge shift towards analytics after that. And that got rid of, I mean, 3 of the 4 AFC North head coaches before the Eagles won their first Super Bowl were defensive guys.
Yeah.
And the other one was John Harbaugh, who doesn't fit in either of those categories.
Well, I mean, I think that AFC North today, it's still, I think that one offensive head coach is Zach Taylor, because Kevin Stefanski, I'd consider, to me, he's a defensive head coach. Mike Tomlin, to me, is still a defensive head coach, and John Harbaugh, like I said, one of those culture guys. But the AFC North is a outlier in that, because if you look at any other division in football, NFC West, Jonathan Gannon, McVay.
Gannon's a defensive guy. He was the Eagles DC. But
for some reason, I thought he was OC.
McVay, Shanahan,
and then
McDonald.
So,
but
excuse the NFC West, because the NFC West is pretty even. But actually, the active head coaches split might be more even than
it might be. But if you look at the playoff teams from last year, right? Philadelphia, is Nick Sirianni a CEO more than an offensive guy? Yes, but he comes from an offensive background. Dan Campbell, also more of a CEO, also has an offensive background, also has a defensive background.
McVay.
Sean McVay, pure offense. Dan Quinn, one of the few pure defense guys that made the playoffs last year.
LaFleur and
Matt
Green
LaFleur
Bay.
in Green Bay, that's an offensive. I have to look at last year's playoff bracket now.
Sean McDermott is I think he's in this. I think he's similarly. He is somewhat in the same boat as Dan Campbell.
Yeah,
because he does have a little bit more offensive experience than a lot of the pure. He's not as defense as Dan Quinn is.
Yeah,
Dan Quinn's all defense.
Well, and I now have the bracket pulled up in front of me. The NFC is actually pretty even. Lions CEO, Eagles CEO, Buccaneers defense, Commanders defense, Rams offense, Vikings offense, Packers offense. Right, so there's 2 CEOs, 2 defensive guys, and 3 offensive head coaches in the NFC that made the playoffs last year. Switching over to the AFC, Kansas City Chiefs, Andy Reid, maybe the greatest offensive mind ever. Houston Texans, DeMeco Ryan is definitively a defensive head coach. Sean McDermott, definitively a defensive head coach. The Ravens have a CEO head coach. Sean Payton's definitively an offensive guy. Mike Tomlin, definitively a defensive guy. And Jim Harbaugh, definitively a defensive guy. So maybe I'm talking out of my fucking ass.
Maybe the trend is that, and although keep in mind that
the Super Bowl, though, was between
an offense and a CEO/offense.
And a CEO/offense.
But those other two championship teams
Both had defensive head
are
coaches.
defensive head coaches. So
Were they defensively powered teams though?
I
Like,
think
if you look at
I think that might be the better question, because a lot of these defensive head coaches have another leader on their offense.
the Commanders have.
Last year was a really good. I thought last year was a really
Kingsbury.
good,
It's Kingsbury.
really good partnership between Daniels and Kingsbury. Buffalo.
Joe Brady's one of the best offensive minds in the sport and is going to be a head coach after this year.
Yeah, and Buffalo is self-explanatory. The Ravens are self-explanatory, although their offensive reign is very much so Todd Monken and Lamar.
Yeah.
Todd Monken's I think he's a great offensive coordinator, and crucial for Lamar's passing development. But a lot of these defensive powered teams have someone on that offense to lead. A lot of these, I feel like some of these offensive teams don't have that kind of definitive leader, whether it be a player or a coach, who have that. Other than I'm probably the Rams, because I like Chris Shula. Chris Shula is a lot like Nick Sirianni, where he's kind of psychotic sometimes, but in a good way.
Bringing this back to Atlanta, which is where this all started.
Yeah.
It is concerning to hear, and Raheem Morris openly admitted that he got outcoached yesterday or on Sunday. But it's concerning to hear a head coach say that and then say we're pulling our offensive coordinator from the booth to the field, and then fire the receivers coach, and it's a lot of midseason shakeup. It's a lot of quarter season shakeup for a team that really was supposed to be finding its groove this year offensively. And I fear, for as good of a coach as Raheem Morris is, we're going to find out about him what we did about Vic Fangio or modern Bill Belichick, right? Where after Super Bowl 53, Bill Belichick turned into one of the worst coaches in the league because his system stopped working, and he was an awful GM. But it's hard to imagine Raheem Morris making it through the season if there's going to continue to be this much turmoil on his coaching staff.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think that coaches that have come from the McVay tree, obviously the most successful has been Kevin O'Connell. Kevin O'Connell has completely invigorated Minnesota with passion and a true hope to win a Super Bowl, and a true possibility to win a Super Bowl at that. Raheem Morris, I think I agree with you when you say that if there continues to be this much turmoil throughout the season on the coaching staff, it's hard to see him not on the hot seat next year. I don't think he'll be out of Atlanta after this season, but I think if there continues to be this much turmoil, he will be on the hot seat next year.
Well, and it's worth mentioning comparative value-wise, right? Mike McDonald is a great example. So you have a great defensively minded head coach. If the Seahawks offense, and granted they were playing the Saints, but if they play like they did this past week going forward, Mike McDonald's going to lose his offensive coordinator.
Yeah.
And then what? Then he has to replace him, right? And this has been the problem with the Eagles the last couple of years, is Nick Sirianni can't call plays. And
did you find out if he ended up calling?
Kevin Petula. So actually, the official quote from Sirianni was something to the effect of, Kevin was calling the plays in the second half, but make no mistake, Jalen was out there communicating. Which means Kevin Petullo called the offense, but no, he didn't. Jalen Hurts did, which is really funny.
So we had a question at halftime, or I think it was around the third quarter.
It was around the third quarter.
Around the third quarter, we started asking. We were like, it would be really funny if Nick Sirianni took the offensive play calling in the second half, because the Eagles' offense, if you guys didn't watch the game or watch the highlights, the Eagles' offense looked completely different from a personality standpoint to an executional standpoint. The Philadelphia offense looked very, very different in the second half.
Jalen Hurts put up like 205 passing yards just in the second half.
Because it was -1 net passing yards in the first half. Yeah, I think that Raheem Morris is very much so being tested as a head coach. Does he have what it takes to be a head coach? Can he bounce back? Can he get his players to bounce back. Because at the end of the day, when you lose a football game on Sunday, you have to bounce back Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and be able to play again with a clear slate the following week.
And that really is the head coach's job is, hey, losses suck. We've got another game. Let's go 1-0 this week.
Yeah.
And we'll see. Because the loss to Tampa in week 1 sucked. It sucks to lose on a walk-off. But then you turn around and beat the shit out of Brian Flores, one of the best defensive minds in the sport. And now, granted, Flores was missing his number one linebacker, and it's a scheme that very heavily relies on linebackers. But to turn around and lose that game, and I like the Panthers a lot more than I know you do, and than I think a lot of other people do. I like what the Panthers have to offer as a team. I don't think they're going to be a playoff team, but I think that they could be competitive for the division next year.
Maybe.
And they're based on where I expected the Falcons to be and where I expected the Panthers to be. Could the Panthers beat the Falcons? Sure, yeah, absolutely. Divisional games are weird. The Panthers are better than a lot of people give them credit for. Should the Panthers have been able to blow out and shut out?
Yeah. First shutout of the season wasn't an upset and a blowout shutout at that.
A 30-0 shellacking. And it raises concerns about the defense in Atlanta, which is Raheem Morris's job. It raises questions about the offense, which is not Raheem Morris's job. But it raises questions about the team because it seemed like at certain points, based on what I watched, the Falcons just gave up.
Yeah,
and kind of let it come at a certain point.
Yeah, and as a football team, if you're about winning, you don't give up until that clock says 0.
Yeah.
I think that is something that the true elite teams in the league have shown time and time again. Is that no matter what the score, what we saw in Philly, no matter what the score, no matter what the time says on the clock, players don't lose hope. They're not out there jogging on their routes. They're not out there looking like they don't want to be there. And as a head coach, that's something that you have to correct that. That you absolutely have to correct that. And to just kind of try to segue into the final highlight from last week, is that the Chargers and the culture that Jim Harbaugh and the confidence that Jim Harbaugh has brought to the Chargers, it looks really good.
It does.
I thought it looked good last year, and I think that they are picking up, not from where they left off because they threw, 5 interceptions in that playoff game last year?
I think it was 4. It's bad. Either way, it's bad.
But the Jim Harbaugh Chargers are looking good to start the year. They're 3-0. And they are looking like a favorite for the AFC West.
Well, and that's really weird, right? Because did I expect the Chargers to be better this year? Yes, absolutely. Just kidding. I actually had them finishing 4th in the division. Because I thought that they didn't get meaningfully... This was before they had signed Keenan Allen. But I thought that they didn't get meaningfully better at the skill positions. And in fact, thought that they regressed at specifically the running back position. And so far, that part's actually true. What I didn't expect was Keenan Allen to return to prime form, Quentin Johnson to learn how to fucking catch, and Ladd McConkey, the leading receiver on the Chargers last year, to be 3rd in receiving yards and receiving touchdowns on the team this year. And I will give an immense amount of credit to Justin Herbert, who I was very harsh on in the offseason. He's shutting me the fuck up. And I still need to see it in the postseason because I've seen him be great in the regular season before. I still need to see it in the playoffs. But being great in the playoffs doesn't necessarily mean you walk away with a win. At the end of the day, it is a team sport, right? Being great in the playoffs means you don't choke a 33-7 lead to the fucking Jaguars or throw 4 interceptions against the Texans defense when their offense can't stop Khalil Mack.
Yeah. I completely agree with you on that about Justin Herbert. I mean, a huge comeback like that can never be pinned on one player.
No.
That wasn't just Justin Herbert's fault, because if the defense gets one more stop,
But if he makes
if
one more pass.
if the running game is a little bit more consistent, there are so many different factors that play into a big comeback like that, and it's really difficult for me to pin against one person. I don't like doing that.
Yeah.
We've talked enough ball for you to know that about me. But in that, you can't throw 4 interceptions in a playoff game. But we'll see. Assuming the Chargers make the playoffs this year, we'll see what that offense looks like with Herbert at the helm. Hopefully, say hopefully, just because injuries can happen.
You never know, and I really do hope that we get to see Herbert play through the whole season. Now, the other interesting part of what's going on with the Chargers, they're 3-0, and not just 3-0, 3-0 in the division to start the year. Meanwhile, and this will segue nicely into one of our games of the week, the Chiefs might start 1-3. And look, did they beat the Giants? Yes. Was it convincing?
I don't think so.
No, it was not. You can't struggle offensively against that defense and have me say that things are going to be okay. Right? The fights between Travis Kelce and Andy Reid are nothing new. In fact, in 2021, the fight between Kelce and Reid that year was credited with sparking the offense and helping them reach the AFC Championship. But it's not a good sign. And I know the Chiefs still aren't healthy, right? Xavier Worthy was held out this week. He'll probably be back next week. Rashee Rice is still out until week 6, 7.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure he's out. He's out the first 6 games, I think.
So he'll be back in week 7. And I'll cut out the part where I said 6 and 7 next to each other. But I don't know, man. If they start 1-3 and the Chargers win this week and start 4-0, it's a much tougher division to come back into.
It is.
Right? And it's not impossible, right? One of my favorite verbs is chargering to describe all of the wacky shit that's happened to that franchise over the vast majority of their existence. They are known for getting a huge lead and blowing it in dramatic fashion, as are the Ravens. But it becomes a lot tougher for the Chiefs, who I had winning the AFC West, who I had going to the conference championship, to recover from that. And will they still make the playoffs? Probably. Once they get into the swing of things in week 8 or 9, I expect them to look a lot better.
Yeah.
But if you hit week 9 and you're 3-5,
or worse, 2-6,
or 2-6, you have no wiggle room at that point. And that's a tough position to be in if the division leader is 6-2.
Yeah.
Or better.
And I mean, we've seen teams come back in a division like that and still make the playoffs. I mean, the Rams just did it 2 years in a row. They start 3-6 2 years in a row, and then go on to win
and give the eventual Super Bowl champs hell. 10
of the last 11 games. And it's possible, but I completely agree with you that if the Chiefs this week are playing the Ravens.
Yes.
And the Ravens so far this year was supposed to be on paper a top 3 defense, have looked a lot like Swiss cheese.
And
I mean,
they looked, I forget who the Ravens beat last week.
Browns.
Yeah, the defense looked good against the Browns, but with all due respect, if your defense doesn't look good against the Browns, something's wrong. Green Bay, sorry.
Green Bay's defense, did they let up, 13 points?
No, it was absolutely an offensive problem in Green Bay last week. Matt LaFleur, I'm looking at you. But it's the Ravens defense, I'm starting to get concerned. It's one thing to give up a comeback like that to Buffalo, right? Because at a certain point, the offense is at fault there too. We saw this on Sunday. If the offense isn't doing anything, the defense is tired more, and it just becomes harder to stop those gash plays. And the more gash plays that happen and the less your offense does to give you time to rest, the more the gash plays are going to happen. Week 1 against one of the best teams in the conference,
It
sure,
happens.
fine, whatever, it happens. You go out, you pitch not a shutout, but a very great defensive game against a very bad offense. Great, fine, whatever. And then you come out against the Lions, who are one of the best teams in the league. Let's be very clear about that.
As much as I don't want to admit, because they did lose Ben Johnson and Aaron Glenn. And you're not supposed to be good after losing both your coordinators, but the Lions seem to be good, especially against that Ravens
run defense.
Especially against that Ravens, not just run defense, it was that pass defense. It was the Ravens defense as a whole looked really weak. We're recording this on Tuesday, so last night they looked really, really bad. Last night, this morning, I spent a lot of time watching the Ravens-Lions film, particularly focusing on that Ravens defense. And whenever the Ravens, particularly the passing defense, whenever the Ravens pass rush didn't get home, the secondary couldn't hold it. Whenever the pass rush was about to get home, the secondary couldn't hold it. And
that's a problem for a defense whose strength is supposed to be in the secondary. And it's one thing if it's just Jair Alexander or just Chidobe Awuzie in the secondary, and they're just picking on the corner too. But Nate Wiggins got beat a lot. Marlon Humphrey got beat a lot. Kyle Hamilton got beat a lot.
Kyle Hamilton right now is the only player in the Ravens secondary with a PFF grade of higher than 65. Jair Alexander's PFF grade right now stands
23?
At 23.
I
didn't know PFF went that low.
I want everyone at home to know I guessed.
I didn't know that PFF grades went that low.
I've seen a 19.
Honestly,
thank you, Carson.
So, I mean, as a defense that's supposed to be on paper a top 3 defense in the league, everyone expected them to be an absolutely phenomenal defense because they've been one the last few years. And
a defense that found their stride late in the season last year, restoring faith in Zach Orr and saving his job.
Yeah. And it's just, what is going on in Baltimore? And honestly, yes, last night, not Justin, Nnamdi Madubuike and Kyle and Uncle Kyle, KVN, Kyle Van Noy, were out last night. And yes, those are 2 of your defensive front 7 starters. But you've still got to find some way to get pressure. And you've got to find some way to get to the quarterback. The Detroit Lions offensive line last night let up 0 sacks.
Yeah.
Jared Goff didn't see the ground. And frankly, it's hard to stop an offense when that's going on. And I think they did a great job defending Jahmyr Gibbs in the run. But David Montgomery absolutely thrashed them. Yeah. And unfortunately for the Ravens, the Lions are one of the teams that can genuinely have 2 running backs rush for almost 1,000 yards.
Yeah.
There's not a lot of teams that can say that. But still, for the Ravens defense, it looks really, really bad right now. And this week, I think that the Ravens-Chiefs matchup this week is going to be a really good tell for both of the Ravens defense and the Chiefs, because both of these teams have looked really questionable. They're both 1-2, and one of these teams are probably going to be leaving 1-3. And I don't think that's where anyone saw either of these teams being come week 4.
No. Most people didn't have the Chiefs losing by week 4.
I mean, I did, but that's because...
Well, I did too, but that is mostly because I didn't think they were going to lose to the Chargers. I did think they were going to lose to us. I thought we were going to get them again.
Yeah, I agree.
But to have the Chiefs with the potential to be 1-3 to start the season, to have the Ravens
have the potential
to be 1-3 to start the season, either one of those things is weird. One of those teams is going to force the other one into it. And I honestly think the loser might be better off long term. Like long term thinking this season.
Mm-hmm.
Because one of these teams is going to come out being humiliated that they're 1-3. And unless specifically the Chiefs offense shows up and shows out, they're going to be headed into next week with a lot of question marks, even if they win.
Yeah.
And at this point, if the Chiefs' offense does show up and show out, I'm not sure it counts. The Ravens' defense has struggled so much against these teams with a lot of talent. I just don't know, how are they going to stop Xavier Worthy, right? How are they going to stop Tyquan Thornton?
How are they going to stop anyone with the way that they've been playing lately?
I trust that they can stop Travis Kelce.
I thought that they were going to stop Sam Laporta.
Sam Laporta is much younger than Travis Kelce is, though. That's a
true.
much tougher matchup at
That's
this point
true.
in their respective careers.
The Ravens' defense just doesn't look good. I think that the Chiefs' offense, Chiefs have started really slow this year. They started slow last year, except last year I think that they had the benefit of some
Fluky plays.
Fluky plays to say it the nice way. And I think that this
Fucking
is going to be
bullshit for anyone who's not watching with kids. There's a lot of bullshit.
I think that this is going to be a really big telling game for both teams. And I'm curious to see how it plays out.
I am too, and I think it's good that this is a 4:25 game because that means on Red Zone it's going to be more in the spotlight, and I'm going to be able to really. I'll have it on my phone as well, but I'm going to be able to really hone in on this one and see what the hell's going on.
Yeah.
But the Chiefs, Steve, I expect a Ravens win because
I expect that too.
The Chiefs' offense has looked bad, and even though the Ravens' defense has looked bad, the Chiefs' defense has also looked bad, and the Ravens' offense has not.
No, the
So
Ravens' offense.
there's 3 bad units in this game, and there's 1 great one. And I expect the great unit to take advantage of the bad unit, and I expect the bad units to about level each other out.
And I want to speak on Lamar Jackson for a second, just because I think that especially after last season, a lot of people had discredited Lamar Jackson a lot.
Yeah.
Because of the talent that he had around him. And last year, I think that's absolutely true, except for one thing, and that is that every unit on his team was good, except for his receivers.
Yeah.
Lamar Jackson is still the only elite quarterback in the league that has lacked and has never had throughout any point in his career an elite receiver. He has had good tight ends with Andrews, who I wouldn't say he's good anymore. He's still solid.
He had a pretty decent game last night.
And Isaiah Likely now. But I don't think Zay Flowers is a true receiver one. And I was having this conversation with my friend who's a Ravens fan, and that is that the thing that the Ravens still lack is a true receiver one. And despite not having a true receiver one, and despite getting sacked 7 times last night, and despite having a top 10 pressure rate in the NFL this year, Lamar Jackson still finds a way to put up points. Lamar Jackson still finds a way to get his offense down the field, and I think that speaks bounds, and I think that speaks so much about the player that he is and has become at this point in his career. And I think that in terms of this game, I think that Lamar Jackson probably will be the factor that will get the Ravens the win, is what I think is going to end up happening.
I agree.
Is because I think that definitely this season, and a lot of you will probably consider this to be a bold take, Lamar can carry an offense better than Patrick Mahomes. And I think that is honestly, I thought the same, because in 2019 Lamar Jackson led the league in touchdowns, and his number 1 receiver was a rookie, Hollywood Brown, and behind him was an old man, Willie Snead.
Yeesh.
And then a rookie, Mark Andrews.
Yeah, the only reason that I pause on that at all is because does Lamar Jackson have an elite receiver or even an elite receiving core? No. Is it far better than the Chiefs? Yes. Is his running back far better than the Chiefs this year? Yes. Is his defense far better than the Chiefs this year? No.
Last night, Derrick Henry didn't look too much better than Isaiah Pacheco.
No, but we know that he's still got it in him because he had a great week 1 and a good enough week 2. I think if you put Lamar in Kansas City, they're probably 2-1 headed into this game. I think Lamar could have beaten the Eagles based on the performance that the Eagles gave. Yeah. I think he could have beaten the Eagles. I don't know about the Chargers. The Chargers came into that game with something to prove.
Yeah.
I think if you put Mahomes in Baltimore, they're probably in roughly the same spot.
Yeah.
I
can agree with that.
In a very roundabout way, I agree with you that at this point in their careers, Lamar is probably better suited to carry an offense than Patrick Mahomes is, even though they are both being asked to do
the same thing. I just wanted to mention that because even though I'm not a Ravens fan, I am from Baltimore.
Yes.
Born and raised. I have a lot of love for the Ravens. And I think Lamar Jackson should be a 3-time MVP, but that is a conversation for a different day.
I also think Lamar Jackson should be a 3-time MVP.
But anyway, we got to get to the last highlighted game that we have for this week, which is Packers Cowboys.
We have 2 more. We haven't talked about the Eagles yet.
You're right. I said an incorrect statement. So,
let's do Eagles Bucks first because Packers Cowboys to me is the more interesting matchup.
Okay.
Considering the weeks that they're both coming off of.
You're the Eagles fan. You are the one who has seen the Bucks absolutely embarrass the Eagles over the last couple of years.
Yeah, so
I want to hear your thoughts about coming into this one.
I watched the Bucks Jets game because we both thought that was going to be a blowout. It wasn't.
It wasn't.
Not only was it not, the Bucks had to win it on a walk-off again for the 3rd week in a row now. And I wanted to see how the Jets came back in that one because they were down pretty substantially.
Yeah, I think it was 20. Was it 23 to 6?
It was 23 to 10.
Okay.
Or maybe actually you're right. It was 23 to 6. The Jets were down 17, and that was the halftime score. And at halftime, we were both thinking, yeah, that looks about right. And then you tell me in the car on the way home, the Jets managed to come all the way back, and I'm like, all right, Tyrod Taylor must have had a legacy game. I don't have with me the piece of paper that I took notes on, but I remember the most important notes were the Tampa offense on their opening drive looked great. Like, as good as I've seen them look all year. But they could not stop fucking holding.
Yeah, I saw. Wasn't it 5?
They had 4 or 5 holding penalties on their opening drive. And no disrespect to the Jets' defensive line because Quinnen Williams is great. Will McDonald is coming into his own. Their pass rush is developing.
Yeah.
And except for Quinnen Williams, who has been developed and great for a long time now.
He has.
With all due respect to the Jets' defensive line, if that's still true this week against Philadelphia, and Tristan Wirfs might come back this week, which will certainly help because their tackle accounted for 2 or 3 of those holds. But they were weakest on the interior. Quinnen Williams repeatedly beat them on the interior and got held on the interior. And my question is, if you're that weak on the interior with the injuries you've suffered, because both of their starting guards are hurt, what the hell are you going to do against Jordan Davis and Jalen Carter? Right, and Jalen Carter's had some effort issues this year. He's been kind of a non-factor in the 2 games he's played in, and he spit on Dak Prescott in the other one. But he's still Jalen Carter, and I expect him to wake up at some point. Why not now? And Jordan Davis, shout out, brand new jersey, by the way, coming off the game of his fucking life, a 4th down stop that was crucial, even if the only result on the other end of it was the Eagles also getting turned away on 4th down. 2 block, and actually, while we're talking about Jordan Davis, I'm springing this award on you in the moment because I want to see your reaction to it. Big Man of the Week award goes to Jordan Davis because holy shit, man.
Yeah.
I have his stats here. A sack, a 4th down tackle for loss to turn him over, 2 blocked field goals, and on one of them, a 61-yard return touchdown to make a 1-point win into a 7-point win, even though it was still a 1-point win. And reached the fastest speed of any player over 330 yards in the next-gen stats
Don't tell
era.
me it's like 19.
It was 18.65.
Jeez.
Yeah,
Christ.
that big dude was hauling ass.
Can we get the kinetic force calculations on that?
How many newtons of pressure was he putting into the ground?
But no.
But
Well deserved. I think even even if it's against
Bo Limmer,
Bo Limmer, who
who will be receiving a Christmas card from me this year.
even if it was most of those big moments were against Bo Limmer, still absolutely phenomenal game from Jordan Davis. I'm not going to try to discredit his game because he did do what great players should do against not great players, and he did dominate. He did dominate Bo Limmer, and was an impact throughout that game. I can't discredit that.
Well, and this is more about. This is as much about his performance this week as it is about the performance in the previous 2 weeks. He played great against Dallas. He played great against Kansas City, and he finally showed up on the stat sheet this week.
Yeah.
And that's not uncommon for pass rushers in general. I mean, we were talking about how Jared Verse is a pressure machine, but doesn't really log that many sacks, and it doesn't matter because he's just as productive.
Yeah. And to bring it to Bucks Eagles, I think you have a really good point about the Bucks injuries on their offensive line to start the year, which is really unfortunate. And honestly, being able to start 3-0 with the offensive line that injured,
Missing three
it's a
of their
really,
top five
really,
guys.
it's a really great start, and you love to come out of that with some wins. And if Jordan Davis and Jalen Carter are abusing backup offensive linemen like they were against the Rams, what's to stop them from doing the same thing against the Buccaneers?
Add to that, and Chris Godwin might come back as well, but add to that the Mike Evans injury, which was the turning point in the game for the Bucs offense. As soon as Mike Evans went down, the Bucs offense stopped being able to move the ball until the final drive.
Which I think that speaks to how good of a player Mike Evans is.
Yeah, 100%.
We all know how
first ballot Hall of
we
Famer.
all know how great Mike Evans is, and just him being in the game. No, he's not Jettis, Chase, or Puka and put up 100 yards a game without batting an eye. But his presence forces defenses to account for him. Because if you leave him one-on-one, even if it's good coverage, Mike Evans has been one of the best jump ball receivers in the league.
He makes 50-50s look like 80-20s.
And him not being in the game is huge. When Egbuka, as cool and as much as I love to see him succeed in his rookie season, can he step into the shoes of Mike Evans? Can he kind of fill that role for as much time as they need him to fill that role is the biggest question that I have.
Well, and should Chris Godwin return? Is he going to be Mike Evans? No. But the answer to can Emeka Egbuka be a receiver one if Chris Godwin's is there on the other side becomes a much easier yes.
It does.
Because Chris Godwin is a great player in his own right.
One of the best slot receivers of the last 5 years, without a doubt.
And, however, if he's not ready to go this week for whatever reason, and the receiver 2/slot receiver is Sterling Shepard, who had a couple great moments, by the way. I wrote down twice on the piece of paper that I took notes on Sterling Shepard in the year of our Lord 2025, because he had a touchdown catch and a really nice catch on the final drive of the game. But if it's Egbuka and Shepard against Quinyon and Cooper, I like the Eagles' defense's odds. That's a much, much tougher matchup for the Bucs offense than it is with either or both of Evans and Godwin out there.
Yeah, I completely agree. Because I think that Chris Godwin does have the capability to win one-on-ones against against anyone in the Eagles cornerback room.
Yeah.
Probably not going to be on Quinyon much, but that's just because Quinyon's outside. Chris Godwin's much more of an inside receiver. But I think Chris Godwin is similar to Puka Nacua in some ways, and you saw what I meant when I told you that Puka Nacua, Puka, you can cover him as good as you want, but the connection that he has with Stafford is that Stafford will put it in a place that only Puka will get it, and Puka will get it.
Yes.
And there's kind of not a whole lot the corner can do about it. And Chris Godwin can do that too.
Yeah.
And I think that if Chris Godwin is the biggest question mark for this game, because if Godwin is back and he's in the game, I think that lets the Bucs offense breathe a lot more.
Yeah. No, 100%. This is a game where we're probably just too early in the week to call it. I'm going to do it anyway. My bet does not reflect this because I refuse to bet against the Eagles. But this feels like a Bucs win to me. Because it's a Tampa home game, because the Eagles have historically struggled against the Todd Bowles defense. I don't know what it is. Every defensive coordinator has their quarterback kryptonite, right? Bill Belichick could not stop Randall Cunningham when he was in the league, and later could not stop Eli Manning. Two very different players. But they just always had Belichick's number, even if they didn't win. And then Steve Spagnuolo, widely regarded as one of the best, if not the best, defensive coordinators in the NFL currently, other than Vic Fangio. Jalen Hurts has his number.
He does.
And I don't know what it is because Hurts is not great against pressure. But whenever Spags brings pressure, game over. Hurts has his man. And the inverse of that is true. Defensive coordinators have certain quarterbacks' numbers. Todd Bowles just has Jalen Hurts in a fucking cinch sack. And it's really weird to me because the Bucs defense has been not great against a lot of elite quarterbacks. But he's got Jalen Hurts by the balls.
He does.
And Steve Spagnuolo has dominated every quarterback that has beat the shit out of Todd Bowles.
Maybe Spag should take some notes.
Maybe Spags should take some notes from Todd
Bowles.
And maybe Todd Bowles should take some notes from Spags on how to stop Lamar and Josh Allen. But
if Spag might be the only defensive coordinator who has those secrets.
Vic Fangio's got it.
Or
at least as of last year, he had it.
Did the Eagles play Bills last year?
No, we played Baltimore though. Right. In a fucking coffin.
Yeah.
We're gonna do the same thing to Buffalo this year.
Probably.
Defensively, we'll see what happens on offense.
But yeah, I think I guess I'll call it too. If this game is in Tampa, if Tampa has Godwin, I think that it will probably look around a 23-14, 27-20 kind of game. I think without Godwin, I still think it's Bucs, but I think it is much closer, like a 20-23, 17-20. Could even be a under 3-point game, but I still think the Bucs, just like you said, I think they just kind of have Philly's number.
Yeah.
And it's hard to break those trends.
And I will make one more note about the Eagles. This is both about the upcoming game against the Bucs and the game against the Rams. Lane Johnson left the Eagles game very early with a neck injury, which absolutely contributed to the Eagles' offensive struggles in the first half because they put Matt Pryor out there at right tackle, which is a mistake.
He let up that fumble sack against Verse in the beginning of the second half.
And as soon as Verse hit the strip sack, credit to Jeff Stoutland, credit to Kevin Patullo, credit to Nick Sirianni. They pulled him, and they put in Fred Johnson, who was our swing tackle last year. And Fred Johnson let up 2 hurries, and that was it.
No, that I think that adjustment was huge for the second half of the Eagles.
And Lane Johnson being out, historically, is very bad for us. We've lost more than twice as many games as we've won when Lane Johnson is inactive since we drafted him. And Fred Johnson last year could not cover that hole against Tampa. And I'm very interested to see Yaya Diaby and the other Bucs edge rushers, including Hassan Reddick, former Eagle, against Fred Johnson. Because if he can hold up, Fred Johnson's the kind of guy that could get a sneaky little contract extension in Philadelphia. We win one more ring, and I actually have a conspiracy theory to share as well.
Okay.
But we win one more ring. Lane Johnson retires. Fred Johnson slots in, and that's it.
Yeah, I think it could be. I mean, isn't that what happened with Juergens?
Yeah, I mean, Jason Kelsey joined Jeff Stoutland in the scouting room when they were looking at offensive line prospects in 2022, which is when we drafted him. And Kelsey handpicked his center replacement that year. And it was Cam Juergens. And we sat Juergens in 2022 because he didn't need to play. We started him at right guard in 2023, and he was great. As in, we didn't hear his name, so he couldn't have been that bad. And then Kelsey retired, and Juergens slotted right in. And obviously, Juergens was not an All-Pro last year, but he was probably a top 5 center in the league, which is remarkable for
Yeah,
a
no, I agree.
first-year center taking over the Eagles' offense, which requires a lot out of its center. It's remarkable to have gone from the best center of the 2010s to Cam Juergens, who is not quite as good yet, but is better at a younger age than Jason Kelce was.
Yeah, I agree with that. And if the same thing happens at right tackle, honestly,
It's just curtains for the league.
it's annoying that the Eagles just seem to have an offensive line factory.
Shout out Jeff Stoutland.
And when Rob Havenstein retires, I don't know what's going to happen at right tackle. Because thank the Lord when Big Whit retired, Alaric Jackson was able to come in and or come up because he was drafted by the Rams. Actually, technically he wasn't. He was signed by the Rams to UDFA, but still very fortunate to have him. And when Rob Havenstein retires, I'm a little bit jealous that we don't have a backup plan right now. But yeah, Eagles Bucks. I'm curious to see how it'll go. See if the history continues. But Packers Cowboys. Speaking of history, two of the oldest franchises in the league have a lot of history with one another, and have a prime time slot this week.
Yeah, it's I was about to say it's going to be a great game. I actually don't think it's going to be. CeeDee Lamb is out for 4 to 6 weeks, which is going to really hamper the Cowboys' offense because a lot of it runs through CD.
I can't even name.
You can name their receiver.
I'm bad at my job.
You know who it is. Traded for him in the offseason.
George Pickens.
Yeah.
Should have known that. I keep thinking in my mind he's still a Pittsburgh Steeler, but
I won't blame you for not being able to name their receiver 3 or 4. I can because
isn't it Jake Bobo? Or no, that's a Seahawk.
That's in Seattle. It's Jalen Tolbert and tiny Kevontae Turpin. Kevontae Turpin, one of the best return men in the league.
Oh yeah, without a doubt.
Especially in the new kickoff format, he is immensely dangerous.
Former USFL MVP.
He's also like 5'7", so he's not the best receiving prospect.
You don't need to be when you're a multi-time All-Pro at return.
Well, and that's the thing. But they're gonna be asking him to step in at receiver 3 a lot more with CeeDee Lamb out. It was already split between him and Jalen Tolbert, but now one of them has to be receiver 2, and the other one has to be receiver 3 full time. So it's going to be really interesting to see the Cowboys' defense against this Packers offense. I also feel really bad because Micah Parsons is going to be pissed off and playing. If Micah Parsons doesn't have more than 2 sacks, I'd be surprised. And that's nothing about the Cowboys' O-line or even Dak Prescott, who is not easy to sack. But Mike is going to be upset. He's going to be upset coming off the loss. That whole defense is going to be upset coming off the loss. And then there's the Cowboys' defense and the Packers' offense, which is also upset coming off the loss. Uh-oh.
And this is the thing that I think is the most interesting about this game is that similarly to the Ravens and the Chiefs, I feel like both of these teams haven't been what we thought they were going to be. I mean, that Packers defense the Packers defense so far this season have looked really, really great. But that offense is a lot of what we saw last year, and that is that they can be really inconsistent at times.
Yeah.
And that inconsistency is what leads to losses like the Cleveland Browns. Which is not to knock the Cleveland Browns defense, because if the Cleveland Browns have any bright spot and have had any bright spot over the last 5 years, it has been the defense. Defense, I feel like.
Big number 95 specifically.
And now adding Mason Graham to that lineup, Denzel Ward is another really standout player for that team. And there's that young linebacker. I don't know his name. It's weird.
Koromoa? Or
no, not J.O.K. Schweisinger.
Apologies for the pronunciation. I'm almost certain I got it wrong, but the rookie.
I'm sorry,
the rookie paired with J.O.K. makes for a very dangerous front seven.
And so no knock to the Cleveland defense. Cleveland has a really great defense, unless you're playing the Ravens. but that's a divisional game. And Lamar absolutely dominates the AFC North. But that Packers offense has a tendency to look really inconsistent. And I think that the biggest question mark for this game is going to be the Packers offense, because if the Packers offense is on, I think the defense is going to do their job. I don't see Dallas getting more than 20 points in this game. So I think the biggest question mark is that Packers offense.
Yeah, and to me, the biggest question mark of the whole game is the Dallas defense, right? Even if the Packers offense has a bad one, do we trust anyone on the Dallas defense to capitalize?
Yeah.
Like, even if Jordan Love has to run around for 12 seconds, maybe Kenny Clark will get home eventually. Maybe Donovan Ezeraku will get home eventually. Maybe Trayvon Diggs or Deron Bland will make a play on the ball. But if they don't, so we had one of our cameras die. But just to wrap up, Packers-Cowboys, you are more questionable about it than I am. I think that this is a game that really favors the Packers in a lot of ways. And you are more hesitant on it.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Just because of what we saw last year, and in the beginning of the season, I had confidence that trend, okay, they might be a little bit more consistent. But then Cleveland, even though Cleveland is a good defense, 10 points with as many opportunities that they had, that's just not a great showing. And even though I do still favor the Packers in this game, which we'll get into with the pick'em soon. If it's not there, it's not there. And I think that's the only part where my concern comes in.
And with that, let's get into the pick'ems. This is a much weaker slate. We were talking about this off camera a little bit. A much weaker slate than it has been in past weeks.
Yeah. I thought last week had a lot of really exciting games, a lot of games I was really curious about to see how they played out. And this week, not so much.
Yeah.
But I still think that there could be some telling games here. And I think that to start off, we start with the Monday night. Got the NFC West matchup between the Seahawks, not Monday night, Thursday night, between the Seahawks and Cardinals. I think that the Seahawks finally looked like the Seahawks last week, and I think that they're going to be able to carry that momentum into this one. I've got the Seahawks in this one winning 27-20 over the Cardinals.
See, and you have a little bit more faith in the Cardinals offense than I do. I watched the Cardinals offense. Well, I didn't watch it, but I saw the Cardinals offense barely put up 13 against a defense that was eventually missing Nick Bosa, and I see a blowout candidate here. I don't think it's super likely because the Cardinals defense has looked good to start the year, but this could be a 34-17 game, and I wouldn't be terribly surprised about it because the Seahawks defense, I think, is significantly better than what the Niners have shown us to start the year. It's healthier than the Niners are, and the Seahawks offense is better in its current state than the Niners offense is. And it's going to wrap around and really hurt the Cardinals, I think.
Yeah. You said you had 34-17?
34-17, Seattle.
Next up, I have Vikings Steelers. I think that even without J.J. McCarthy, I thought the Vikings offense looked fine last week. They were efficient with the ball. Obviously a 48-3 win is huge. Granted, that was mostly the Vikings defense, but going into Pitt is the part where I get a little bit hesitant to say that the Vikings are going to be as great as they were last week. The Steelers are a more competent organization than Bengals. Even with that, I do have the Vikings edging out the Steelers 20-17.
Yeah, the Steelers are an endlessly frustrating team. I know what I'm expecting out of them. I'm always expecting a great defensive showing and a borderline non-existent offensive showing. Doesn't make them any more fun to watch. I think Carson Wentz showed, and unfortunately he's not quite 33, so he's not an Unk Still Got It candidate. But Carson Wentz showed that he still has some juice. Kevin O'Connell obviously helped Sam Darnold and apparently Daniel Jones. I trust that he can do the same with Carson Wentz, although I have said for like 5 coaches in a row, if X can't fix Carson Wentz, no one can.
I mean, Carson Wentz did get a win against the 49ers a couple years ago as a Rams backup. Just saying. No,
No, I mean, that is worth bringing up, but I think that this is probably a 24-13 game in favor of the Vikings to me. The Vikings defense is just so fucking lethal, and Aaron Rodgers might die across the pond. So we'll see how that goes for the first international game of the year.
Airing at 10 a.m. Eastern time, I think.
Airing at 9:30 a.m. Eastern time.
Got football from 9:30.
I am going to be drinking at
9:30. Commanders Falcons. What are your thoughts?
Are you fucking kidding me? It's got to be the Commanders, right? Even if Jaden Daniels is still out, which he may or may not be. But I mean, we just watched Marcus Mariota have an Unk still got it performance where he just absolutely torched the Vikings. And while we're talking, or not the Vikings, the Raiders. And actually, I forgot to mention this while we were talking about the Vikings. My NFC Player of the Week last week, Isaiah Rodgers, first player in NFL history to have a pick six, a fumble recovery touchdown, and 2 forced fumbles in a game. Did it all in the first half. Immensely proud of the former Eagle. And really wish that he was still with the organization. And the relevance of that is the Raiders actually held my AFC Player of the Week last week. Trey Tucker, the quietest 8 for 145 in 3 game ever. And it didn't matter because Marcus Mariota just beat the shit out of his former team.
Yeah.
This is a pretty handy Washington win to me. The Falcons will finally put up some goddamn points, but it won't matter because the Commanders will drop 40+, and I'm thinking 45-21.
I think I've got a little bit more confidence in the Atlanta defense and the Atlanta team to bounce back. Because I do want it to be known that, yes, the Panthers did put up 30. Those were not 30 offensive points.
No.
The Atlanta defense, I think, is going to bounce back. I think that they're going to give the Commanders a little bit of struggle. I've actually only got this game at a 23-17 still. I think Commanders are going to take it. I don't think they're going to have quite the dominant performance that you see, but we'll see on Sunday.
Well, that's the fun thing about this show and this segment is, I mean, to the namesake of the show, any given Sunday, anything can happen.
Yeah.
We could see 45-21 in the other direction, where the Falcons just absolutely light it up.
Yeah. It's possible because football is an absolutely amazing sport where on paper the prep you do, everything that happens leading up to the game really doesn't matter the second that starting whistle gets blown.
Everyone's got a plan until they get punched in the mouth.
But mentioning that blowout that you think could happen with the Commanders Atlanta game, I think that the first blowout we'll see of the week is going to be Chargers Giants, because the Chargers are one of those has been a team that have started really hot. They look efficient on offense. The defense looks good. They just look like a strong team. And the Giants on the other side do not. Russell Wilson has by far thrown the most somebody's down there somewhere balls this year
And
of
all
his
of them
career.
have been picked except like 2.
And making a lot of questionable decisions. Will that lead to Dart playing in this game?
Yes,
It
actually,
could.
they named him the
They
starter.
named the starter?
They
They
named
named
the
the starter this
starter.
morning? Jackson Dart gets seen for the first time in the NFL. I think it's going to be a tough matchup, though, against the Chargers because that defense is good. I've got the Chargers winning this one 30-13.
I think that Dart playing increases the Giants' odds of winning. Unfortunately, I think it takes it from about 0.5% to about 1%. So I do think that Dart is probably the better option than Russell Wilson, which is intended to be disrespectful to Russell Wilson. Because I don't think, and you and I have disagreed about this since the pre-draft process, I don't think Dart is there yet.
Yeah.
And I understand why the Giants aren't sitting him this year. If I were Brian Dable and my ass were on the line, I wouldn't fucking sit him. But this is a really poorly thought out first start to me. I would have thrown Russell Wilson out there to die one more time. And I'm actually going to look at the Giants' Week 5 opponent before I finish this sentence. No, I would have waited one more week because the Giants have the Saints next week, and that's a much now. that could be a game, depending on how Dart looks, that the New Orleans Saints might actually win.
Yeah. And it being in New Orleans.
It being in New Orleans, but that's a much more friendly first start for Jackson Dart.
Yeah, because the Chargers defense is stingy. They're rough. Any points you get against them, you really got to fight for. And for a rookie quarterback, that's not
his first career
start in the regular season.
Yeah,
that's not where you want to. That's not the situation you want to put him in. But
maybe he flashes and has an immensely impressive week 1 start. We've certainly seen that from rookie quarterbacks before. We've seen that from a Giants rookie in his first career start. Daniel Jones flashed against Tampa Bay and then never again until he was in Indianapolis. But it's a really, really tough first start. And I would have waited just one more week.
Yeah.
And what it says to me that they're starting Dart this week is that Brian Daboll was told he doesn't have one more week to start Dart. Either you start the kid now and we see what he's fucking got, or your ass is out by mid-season if things don't improve with Russ. He did not like those odds, and now we're seeing the rookie.
Yeah, that very much so could have happened. The NFL is a very brutal and unforgiving business. So it very much so could have been forced to give Dart the start, but I'm excited to see what he's got. He was personally my second favorite quarterback prospect in this class.
Behind Cam Ward.
A lot of people didn't think so. Cam Ward was clearly head and shoulders above the rest. But I think that Dart could potentially show a lot of people things that they didn't think he had.
Yeah.
But even with that, I don't think that's happening this week.
Nope. I got 33-10 Chargers.
Yeah. So we're in the same boat there. Even though it's in New York, starting in front of the home fans for Dart, that Chargers defense, man, they are really, really tough, and the Giants have not looked great to start the season. But Titans-Texans are our second divisional matchup.
If the Texans don't win, we're going to be having some conversations.
Yeah.
Right? The Titans have not been as bad as I expected them to be. They have not been as bad as they were last year.
Yeah.
But they are still a bad football team.
Yeah, at this current moment in time, yeah.
And the Texans' defense is supposed to be the highlight of that team. Kind of like the Ravens' defense. It's supposed to be the side of the ball that you don't have to worry about in any given week. And if they can't shut down Cam Ward and, I don't know, leading receiver Calvin Ridley and second leading receiver Alec Iomener, man, it's going to raise a lot of questions about DeMeco Ryan.
Yeah,
and I don't want that because I really like DeMeco Ryan and I like the fire and the passion that he's brought to that franchise. He's won 2 playoff games in 2 years. They're not going to fire him no matter what happens this year. But it's a problem.
Yeah, starting 0-4, they have started really slow, and my biggest question mark for the team is the offensive line. I mean, you lose Laramie Tunsil, who's been one of the top 10 pass pro tackles in the league for the past 5 to 6 years, and then you don't do too much to replace him. And a quarterback who already had to deal with so much pressure and getting hit so much last year in his rookie year. It to me, I don't know who the Texans GM is, but whoever you are, please get that kid some help. Please get him some guys that can protect him and keep him on his feet. Because if you do, I think the sky's the limit for that Texans offense. But until they do that, the Texans are going to keep struggling with what they've been struggling with.
The Texans GM's name is eluding me at the moment, but he's already in for a rough pre-draft process because he fully guaranteed his second-round rookie's contract. And so GMs were already taking numbers to fist fight him at the Combine next year. And it's just an absolutely brutal position to be in, to also need an offensive lineman and to be in bad standing because of that with all the other GMs in the league.
Yeah.
It's an absolutely brutal situation. But I do have the Texans winning. I think maybe 24-17 is not an unreasonable score. I think the Titans are going to look better than they should against a team that's supposed to be a clear-cut division favorite. And I think the Texans are going to get brought back down to reality because of the way the Colts have started this year.
Yeah. I've also got the Texans winning this one, but I've got it 2013. Yes, the Texans have their struggles, but I don't think the Titans are going to be one of those teams that can capitalize on them. And the Titans are still not a great team right now. And the Texans still do have a little bit more consistency, a little bit more success, and I think that is going to carry them. And being at home for the Texans does help. This game's in Houston, so I've got 2013 Houston Texans.
Panthers Pats next?
Yeah.
Now, look, I went on record last week to you. I didn't think they were going to win, but I went on record saying the Panthers are better than you were giving them credit for. And I feel a little bit vindicated by that.
Well, because they probably are better than I give them credit for.
It is a New England home game. Drake May has struggled to start the year. I expect a better offensive showing from him. I expect a better offensive showing from Carolina against a much weaker defense than the Falcons have. I've got Panthers 27-24.
Yeah, I think that the Panthers 27-24 score is it's really similar to what I also do have Carolina winning this one 24-20, and that's just because of how really rough the Patriots have looked this year. The Patriots were supposed to be one of those kind of rising teams this year. A head coach that I think that everybody around the league has a lot of respect for. A young quarterback who showed flashes last year. You get him a veteran receiver like Stephon Diggs, who had a large part in being that true one for Josh Allen and helping him develop as a passer. But the Patriots offense has just not looked great. They haven't looked good, and neither has the defense. And that is why I do have the Panthers over them. I think that these are two of the weaker teams in the NFL, but I think the Panthers right now are the better of the two weaker, and I've got them winning 24-20 in Foxborough. It's what I think is going to be the second blowout, and I think the schedule makers really gave the Bills a pretty easy time after week one.
Yeah.
So I've got this game being a 30-7 going to the Bills. It's in Buffalo, and the Saints this year have looked as pretty much as good as I think everyone has thought that they would be, which is not good. They look like one of the worst teams right now. That's just because they need to they need to actually succeed in starting the rebuild. I think since Breeze has retired, they have struggled to find really kind of any young light hope. Until they do, I think they're just going to keep stalling.
It's going to be a running theme on this show. I'm going to keep bringing up that the Saints haven't won with a quarterback they've drafted in almost 30 years. If they go 0-17 this year, it will have been a full 30 years. I'm going to put my certified stamp blowout of the week on this one. I'm not going to put it on Chargers-Giants because there's that 1 in a million chance Dart has the best rookie debut ever.
Yeah.
We know what the Saints are at this point in the season. We know who the Bills are at this point in the season. I'm putting my stamp on it. This is going to be a blowout. I've got 45-10.
I think your score might actually be a little bit more realistic than mine, honestly.
Well, they just lost 41-13 to the fucking Seahawks, or some amount of points in the 40s.
But yeah, I'm with you there on that blowout of the week. This is my biggest score differential. And Josh Allen, enjoy the stats when they're easy to get. But Browns Lions is a game that I think the Browns are going to show a lot more fight in this one than I think a lot of people will, especially since the Lions did just put 38 up on the Ravens. But even though this game's in Detroit, I think the Browns are gonna give the Lions a little bit of a dogfight because the Browns' defense this season has looked good, as we touched on a lot in the talking about Packers. But even with that, I do have Detroit winning this one 24-17.
The Browns' defense is what stopped me from putting the blowout stamp on this one. It's still not out of the question that it happens, but
Yeah.
the Browns' defense being as talented as it is makes it a lot less likely. The Lions in Week 1 really struggled against Green Bay, who the Browns just beat.
Yeah.
But they bounced back in Week 2 in a big way. They bounced back in Week 3 in a big way. And it's hard for me to imagine the Browns offense putting enough points on the board to keep this within 2 scores. So I'm going to say 24-7.
Okay.
Because I just don't think the Browns offense is there. And for the record, I don't think putting the rookies in helps that. I think the Browns are just not talent devoid, but talent deficient on offense.
Yeah, I agree.
And
I think that they have a solid offensive line.
Yeah.
And I think that offensive line is kind of makes the rest of the team look less bad.
Yeah, and I like Jerry Jeudy a lot. I like what he's done with the Browns so far, especially as compared to his Denver tenure. He's not a 1, and Cedric Tillman's not a 2. And David Njoku, great tight end. Harold Fannin has been great to start the year. But the receiving core is really not great. Joe Flacco is an old man at this point, and he's not going to win you games all by himself. And it's just hard for me to see the Browns being terribly competitive in this one because of how little talent they have.
How about Jags, Niners?
This is a tough one to me because the Jags in weeks 1 and 2 looked like I expected them to. Last week against the Texans, they won. They looked like I expected them to. The Niners have far exceeded expectations. Now, it is true that the Niners have the easiest schedule in the NFL, courtesy of how poorly they played last year.
Yeah.
Easier even than the Cardinals because the Cardinals finished 4th in the division and the Niners finished 3rd. So that little discrepancy helps the Niners' strength of schedule. But not having Nick Bosa against a Jags O-line that isn't great but is certainly good enough, it's tough. That's a tough situation to be in because now defensively it's just kind of Fred and the rookies.
Yeah.
And that's not a position you want to be in against an offense, even if he's struggling with Brian Thomas Jr., or even if he's struggling, Travis Hunter, or even if he's popping off, Travis Etienne, and Trevor Lawrence, who has looked much improved this year. It's not a position you want to be in for the Niners, and their offense going against a better-than-expected Jags defense has not. It looked great a couple of weeks ago. It did not look good against Arizona, whose defense I think is worse than the Jags. And yes, San Francisco did enough to win the game against the Cardinals. No, I do not think they will be able to repeat that task this week. I've got 21-14 Jacksonville.
Yeah, I think I'm on the opposite side of. I'm not a Jags believer. I have never been a Jags believer. I'm not a Trevor Lawrence believer. Never have been. And this game is in San Fran. The San Fran defense, even without Nick Bosa, still stopped the Cardinals' offense, which is not the Cardinals' offense isn't anything to laugh at.
Yeah.
The Cardinals' offense is they are capable. Kyler Murray is a capable quarterback, and even if it wasn't for Marvin Harrison drops last week, the Cardinals would have been the team that come out with that win. But the 49ers defense is still good. I think that they did a better job against the Cardinals offense, even with the Marvin Harrison drops. I think that, and I think that the Jags offense, honestly, I think the Jags offense is worse than the Cardinals offense.
Wow. Okay.
And I know that is a hot take, but
Does that remain true post James Conner injury?
It might, because who's the Cardinals' backup? Is it Trey?
Trey Benson.
Yeah, it's Trey Benson. It might not, but even with that, without James Conner, the Jags have a better offense. But in terms of bringing it back to the 49ers defense at home, and I want to emphasize the at home because the 49ers are a lot like the Philadelphia Eagles. When the 49ers play, it's going to be red. It's going to be nothing but red. And if that 49ers defense can get rolling, a lot like the Link, the crowd gets loud, and that offense and it makes opposing offenses very, very, very difficult. I obviously have a lot of experience watching teams play in Santa Monica, and it is tough when that 49ers defense has their engine revved up. And I think that's what's going to happen in this one. I think that they're going to get the jump on Jags early, and I don't think that defense is going to let that grip go. I've got this one in a close one, a low scoring, 14-10, even without Brock Purdy, even without Nick Bosa. And next up, we've got Colts versus my Los Angeles Rams.
Yeah, I see the score you have. I see the score you have written down for this one.
I will let you start off with your thoughts on this.
I'm questioning the score that you have written down, and I don't. I understand where you're coming from. And I think the Colts are going to play better than you are expecting them to based on the score you have written down. I do expect Jonathan Taylor to struggle. And I do expect Daniel Jones to struggle early. But I think what the Eagles showed in the run game last week is if your running back gets shut down but you have a mobile quarterback, you can make it work.
Daniel Jones is not as mobile as Jalen Hurts.
No, but he can run, and we shouldn't discount that. He's not I want to be very clear. He is not anywhere near as athletic as Jalen Hurts is. He is not anywhere near as gifted of a runner as Jalen Hurts is. But he can do it. He is not a pocket passer. He is not a statue. And I think the final score of this one might be deceiving. I think the Rams will win by what feels like a greater margin than the final score will show. I think the final score will probably be 31-24 or 31-28, somewhere in that range. And I think that 14 of the Colts points will come in the fourth quarter.
Obviously, as you mentioned, the score I wrote down for this one. I mentioned a lot earlier that I do hope that Daniel Jones continues to look like a legit great quarterback in the league. I just don't think it'll happen against this Rams team.
Sure.
Before the second half of the game against the Eagles, the Rams had allowed 2 touchdowns on the season. And one of those was on a short field.
Thank you, Zach Vaughn.
This Rams defense is dangerous. This Rams defense they are hungry. They just came off of a loss where they let up a big second half lead. They're pissed about it. Jared Verse wants it back in blood. Byron Young wants it back in blood. This front seven is pissed. And unfortunately for the Colts, they are the team to play them directly after that.
Jared Verse wants his fucking chain back.
Jared Verse does want his chain back. You guys didn't see. I'm pretty sure Jared Verse and Jalen Carter had a bet going on before that game. And Jalen Carter took that post-game interview wearing Jared Verse's chain. Jared Verse is pissed. And if the Rams, I think the score that I have will happen if the Rams can box Jonathan Taylor like they boxed Saquon Barkley.
Yeah.
Because the Colts offensive line is another really good run blocking offensive line. They've got another one of the really good running backs in the league. But if the Rams can stay sound in their gaps and box Jonathan Taylor like they boxed Saquon Barkley, I think this game will end up with a score of 28-13. It's also in LA.
That definitely helps.
I just don't see the Colts being able to have the same second half comeback in the passing game as the Eagles were.
Yeah.
And honestly, I think that's because they don't have A.J. Brown.
That's fair. I would expect more deep passing plays from the Colts, just because that seems to be the direction their offense is going. And I think that'll really help spark their comeback attempt.
Or hurt it.
It might hurt it. But Michael Pittman, while not being A.J. Brown or really anywhere close, is built similarly to A.J. Brown. And to put it lightly, can run through a motherfucker's face if asked. So I think that it'll be closer than you do. But if it ends up being 28-13, better to know in week 4 what the Colts are than to find out in the wild card or divisional round.
Yeah, and I think honestly, if the Colts do get blown out of this one, I think it could be beneficial to them because it's their first really tough matchup of the year. The LA Rams are a really good team. They have a really good defense. And even if you get beat bad, if you can bounce back from that, I think it'll speak a lot about the mentality that this team has this year.
Yeah.
But moving on, I've got Bears Raiders up next. My initial thoughts are that the Raiders look bad, which doesn't surprise anyone. Even though this game is in Las Vegas, I think that the Bears are gonna be able to take this one. I think they're gonna be able to take it 20-13. I think it's gonna be a solid outing for Caleb Williams. I think that the Bears are just gonna have. I think that all around as a team, I think that they're gonna have a good game against a struggling Raiders team.
Yeah. Caleb Williams struggled in the first 2 weeks of the season, no doubt. But it feels worth mentioning that the two teams that he faced have coaches, in the Vikings case Brian Flores, and in the Lions case Dan Campbell, who are intimately familiar with Ben Johnson and his style of coaching and his bag of tricks. And I think that, yes, Caleb will need to be better in divisional games, and yes, Ben Johnson will need to be better in divisional games. But we finally saw what the Ben Johnson offense looks like against coaches that don't know it terribly well, which is surprising because Matt Eberflus should know it well. It kicked his ass 4 times. On Sunday, it kicked his ass for a 5th time. And Caleb Williams has my chart of the week. He was 19-28 for just shy of 300 yards and 3 touchdowns, no interceptions. And the Bears are undefeated in games where Caleb Williams does not get sacked in his career. Now, that might be 1-0.
I was going to say, I'm pretty sure that was only last week.
It might be 1-0, but it's still good to know that when Williams has time to throw from the pocket, when he is kept clean all day, he can put out a statement because that's the quarterback I expected when they drafted him out of USC.
Yeah, I know that you really, really, really loved Caleb Williams coming out of college. I was a little bit lower on him than most people. Honestly, if the pattern hasn't found itself, I'm a little bit of a quarterback hater. In general, I think that the quarterback position has become a little bit overvalued in football.
Maybe a tad.
I'm not saying it doesn't matter because it absolutely does. It is one of the most. It is probably the most vital and involved position on the football field. But at the same time, a lot of people try to act like quarterback can win by themselves. They can't.
No, and Patrick Mahomes has shown that.
Patrick Mahomes has shown that. Lamar Jackson has shown that. Josh Allen has shown that. You cannot win a football game by yourself. But anyway, back to little side note. Back to Bears Raiders. Like you say, Caleb Williams is coming off a really great game. I think that they're going to be able to keep Caleb Williams clean if they can hold down Max Crosby.
But he's the only threat on the Vegas defensive line.
Exactly.
And let's not act like Kenny Clark isn't still productive or Osa Odigizua isn't good. The Bears' offensive line just showed that they can hold down
good pass
a
rushers.
defense with good pass rushers individually. And Ben Johnson showed that he is still capable of scheming up a really great game to put the linebackers in a blender, to put the secondary in a blender. And I've got 35-13 in favor of the Bears because I see no reason that Pete Carroll's talent-deficient defense in Vegas should be able to stop the onslaught that Chicago has the potential to be
Yeah.
if Ben Johnson and Caleb Williams hit their potential.
Ravens Chiefs. The one of our highlighted games of the week. We didn't call before, so we'll keep it short. My final thoughts. I do think that the Ravens are going to take this one. I think they're going to walk into Arrowhead. I think they're mad about how they started this season. It is so much worse than this team is used to doing, and I think that is going to light a monstrous fire under them. I think that they're going to walk into Kansas City. I think the score is going to be like 28-10, 28-13.
Yeah. I think that Kansas City's offense is going to have a better day than that just because of how brutal the Ravens defense has been to start the year. But not by much. I've got 28-17. So I think that 2 touchdowns, maybe even 3 touchdowns, are on the board for Kansas City. But I don't think the game is ever really going to feel close. I expect Baltimore to jump out to a 2-score lead pretty early and to never let go.
Yeah, I'm with you there. And another one of our highlighted games that we didn't call the score for earlier, Packers-Cowboys. Keep it short. I think that Packers offense is going to be there enough to beat the Cowboys, and I think that they're going to take it 23-17 in Dallas.
Yeah, this is another blowout opportunity for me. The Dallas defense just showed emphatically that they are not to be trusted against a capable passing attack. In fact, they've showed it in back-to-back weeks now. And the only reason they didn't show it in week 1 is because Kevin Patullo is a terrorist. But Russell Wilson had 450 yards against this team.
Yeah.
Caleb Williams had almost 300. Jordan Love is a better quarterback than both of those guys right this second. And I expect him to have a monster day. I expect Tucker Kraft to have a mammoth outing.
Yeah.
I'm starting him in fantasy. He fucking better. But I expect... I don't want to put him in the 40s because I've done that so much already. I'll go 35-17
Okay.
for the Packers.
Next up, I think this is probably the...
It's the Monday night doubleheader. Isn't everybody so
have a
excited
Monday
to
night
watch
doubleheader, probably
Jets, Dolphins, and Broncos, Bengals?
Probably only want to watch one of these teams. Even if you're a fan of the other 3, you probably only want to watch one of these teams. The first one that kicks off at 7:15, I'm pretty sure, Eastern time, is going to be Jets Dolphins. I think even the Jets without Justin Fields, they gave Tampa a fight, and like even if it was really really tough at the beginning, they were able to rally back and get a lead late in the game. Unfortunately, fell to the Tampa Bay Magic that has apparently been very present this season. But I think Jets are going to take this one against a really 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 bad Dolphins team, 20-10.
Yeah,
even though it's in Miami.
I think the Dolphins looked a lot better against the Bills than I expected them to.
Yeah.
And I'm going to give credit where it's due, and then I'm immediately going to bash him. Tua looked a lot better than I thought he was going to. I thought the Bills' defense was going to eat him alive. And they didn't until they did. And it's an ill-timed pick for Tua.
Yeah.
A supremely ill-timed pick for Tua. And that is a brutal way to lose a game 2 weeks after turning the ball over 3 times. Actually, maybe even more than that, against the Colts to start the year. The Dolphins have looked better week over week, but Tyrod Taylor and the Jets' offense, I think, really found their stride in the fourth quarter, really, against Tampa. And I think they're going to take this one 28-24.
Yeah, I don't have it as high scoring as that, but that's just because I don't have that much faith in either of these offenses right now.
That is super fair.
But yeah, I've got it going 2020 in New York's way. And then the second Monday night window kicks off at 8:15 Eastern time. I think this has got the potential to be a blowout game.
Yeah,
absolutely. A Bengals team that looked indescribably terrible last week against the Minnesota Vikings. Even though the Vikings have a good defense, putting up 3 points and 4 turnovers.
It was a bad day.
You just can't do that. And We had talked about that previously, what the Bengals were going to look like post the unfortunate Joe Burrow injury. And it was about what I expected it to look like. I've got the Broncos winning this, and this is in Denver. I've got the Broncos winning this 27-20, but I think that even might be a little bit generous.
Yeah, it is a blowout opportunity for Denver. I do think that the Bengals are going to take last week's game. They're going to flush it. They're going to play better this week. I don't know how much better, but I think they're going to play better this week. And the Broncos have, through the first 3 weeks of the season, they've had a game where their defense looked great and their offense really didn't. They had a game where their offense looked great and their defense really didn't. And then they had another game where their defense looked great and their offense really didn't. They need to put it together.
Yeah.
They need to find a way to get both of those sides of the balls producing at the same time. And if ever there were a team to do that against, a Joe Burrow-less Bengals squad with the defense that the Bengals have, they are a prime target.
Yeah.
And I think that the Broncos will let off the gas pretty early because it'll be pretty clear that offensively, I think they'll let off the gas early because I think it'll be pretty clear the Bengals just don't have it. I'm expecting 17-0 through 3 quarters and 17-7 as a final score.
I could definitely see that as being a possibility. But yeah, those are our slates, our pick'ems for all the games this week. Again, my name is TJ. This is Cooper, and this is Any Given Sunday.
And we will see you next week. We will start keeping track of our record on the year.
Yeah.
And we will see at the end of it who's got more of the pick'ems right. And then, true to NFL fashion, we will reset those at the end of the year, and they will not matter going into next year.
No.
But, yeah, thank you for watching, and we'll see you next week.